Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel and to a tutorial that has been requested. So I am part of a wonderful little messenger chat group with some other wonderful colorists that we met through a Facebook group and now have formed our own little messenger chat, and we just use this chat to sort of encourage each other with our coloring and just give each other prompts and ideas. I've mentioned them a couple of times when I've shown off different pages I've completed because of this little chat. They're really lovely people in this chat, and I really enjoy being able to chat with them, even though most of them are on the other side of the world to me. So usually it's like either super late night or really early morning when I can chat to them. But I was talking to them about a page that I had recently completed in the Teresa Goodridge Christmas Charm colouring book, which is this page here. And a request was made by multiple members of the group to reproduce or show how I did this page, and in particular how I coloured the snow. And as they know, I have a YouTube channel, and I was like, okay, I can get onto that. So yeah, that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to show how I did the snow. So a couple of things to know. First off, I live in Aotearoa, New Zealand. We have summer Christmases. This is not what my Christmas looks like, but I thought it would be a really fun opportunity to colour some winter scenes. It turns out, when I was looking back at my history, I haven't coloured a lot of snow, and the one page I remember specifically colouring snow in, I hated how it looked, and I ended up covering it in glitter. So yeah, when I saw this page, I knew I wanted to try and infuse as much colour as possible into the page and into the snow, which is why I went for a more sunset approach to the snow, because my goal was to try and get as much colour as possible into the snow. Even though it's quite pale, I still wanted pinks and purples and yellows and blues in the snow. So that's what we're going to try and reproduce today, is that effect that I created. And so in order to do this, I'm going to use a page from Home for the Holidays, which is this one here. And I thought this would be a good one to use as our sort of reproduction page, because we have a snowman. So I can reproduce the snowman because the snowman was really fun. But also we have areas of like the mounds of snow, and then we have areas of compressed snow, because I handled those areas differently. We also have like the roof drippy snow, and then we have room above for a sunset basically. So I thought this would be quite a good one to use for this example. Now, I don't know how accurate this is. I have never been in snow this thick. There is a mountain here in Taranaki in my region, Mount Taranaki, but like the few times that I've been up there to where the snow does actually hit in winter, it's only been as high as my ankle. I've never been in like snowfall, and so yeah, it's kind of like I would love to experience a white Christmas in a pure winter wonderland someday, but it's not really likely going to be happening here. It snowed once here, and it was really more hail that formed a little bit of frost on the edge of the glass, and it like disappeared in an hour, and that was a freak weather event. That's the closest I've ever been to snow. Yeah, so don't have a lot of experience, but I really like how this turned out, and hopefully you'll do too. And yeah, let's get on to colouring this. So I'll just put this one to the side somewhere, and we'll get on for this page here. I'm just going to sort of split the book a bit more so I can get in there. Alright, I have no idea how long this video is going to be. We're just going to do this real time. I've got the copyright free music playing just so I don't feel so alone. We've got a ridiculously large tumbler of water. Right, let's get into it. So the first step that I did, pull the book out that I immediately put away. So the first step that I did in creating this scene was I chucked down a layer of water-soluble pencils. And this provided this really pastel pale gradation in the background, but also the sunset. Pretty much everything on this page is done in water-soluble pencils and gouache acrylic paints. And then I also have a little bit of stickles on the falling snow. That's it. Water-soluble pencils and gouache is how I did the thing. You could technically do this with like paint pens instead of the gouache like I did. Most of my paint pens are running out, and I was just in a painting mood, so I pulled out the gouache. And then it allowed me to also colour match some areas better later on. But yeah, so we'll start with the water-soluble pencils. Now, the specific pencils that I will be using are the Koh-I-Noor Mondeluez Aquarelle pencils. It's because this is what I have. They're relatively cheap pencils. It's what I have, and I've really been enjoying playing with them lately. I do have a few Albert Drawers, and I would like to get the full range of Albert Drawers as well, but for now I have quite a few of the Mondeluez Koh-I-Noor pencils, and they're not much to invest in, and they've been fun while I've been learning and playing with water-soluble pencils. So here's a little colour chart so you can try to match up what I'm using with what you may wish to reproduce in your own water-soluble sets. And I'm just going to find a photo, because I did send through to the colouring group already the pencils that I chose, but of course it's going to be buried quite far back. Here we go. Joys of having a record. So I use number 15 Ice Blue, which is this very bright blue here, and then I can tell because this one's shorter that will be the right blue. Yep, number 17 Cobalt Blue. And then I know I use this purple because I accidentally have two of them, which is Violet, number 13. And then we want the red violet, which is number 12, this sort of beautiful pinky purple here. And then you can tell by the shortness of the pink that we used a bit of the pink. And then the yellow, which I believe is number 3. Yes, and number 3 is a little shorter. So that's what I used in the snow. And then in the sky I also had a little bit of an orange blender, and I think we're going to use dark orange, number 46. So yeah, that was my basic colorways for pretty much all the snow. And the orange we may not even need to use. Like, I think I used it initially. Let me pull out the original one. I was definitely talking more about the snow, but the sky is done with the same pencils, so we might as well do the sky as well. I'm gonna pull out the regular orange because I feel like I was using more of an orange in the sky, because the sky, the sunset, we want vibrant, so I used a little bit more intensity in the sky, and then for the snow we did that more pastel. Now you might be like thinking, I don't really care about the sky, I just want to learn about the snow. However, to do this sort of rainbowy snow, we need to figure out our sky, because with the sunset we're going to have our sun setting in a certain position, and that's going to put out a rainbow of color, and then that's also going to affect how we put our color on the snow. Because if we put, say, our sun is sitting behind this house here, that means that the yellow is going to be more prevalent on this side, but we're going to need more blue on this side because it's getting less of the sun setting. We could just do it in the middle and keep it nice and even throughout the page, or again we could put it on a different side. So again, going back to this one, you can see my sun is setting here, so this is my brightest spot. So like these trees, they have a lot of yellow around them because they're getting a lot of direct sun from behind. Whereas these trees over here, they have a lot of shadow because the sun is coming this way, and so this house is causing a shadow and blocking these trees. And in that same note, that shadow affects our snow. So down here, we've got a lot more of the blue because the sun is setting and causing a shadow, which affects our snow color. the sun is setting, so this affects the snow on our snowman, because yes, we've got this gorgeous yellow glow from the sun here from it setting, but then on this side we're a lot colder because we're not getting as much sun. So this is why we do have to work out our sky and our light source before we can do the snow, and this is why we need to do the sky first. Light sources is important. So if I put my sun here, pretty much this is all going to be in shadow because of this house here. Same here. We've got a lot of shadow. We could kind of just say it's off to the side a lot more and do a bit of a harsh side angle, which is kind of what I'm inclined to do. We could even technically say our sun is coming in front. I like to do it to the side and behind because you get a really fun sharp back glow. This has somehow turned into a lighting tutorial. But yeah, you can see like these glow on the edges of objects. It's one of my favorite ways to do lighting, is to do that really sharp highlight on one side, which is why I like to do my lighting to the side. And I am thinking it would be nice to do it over here behind the house and give that house like our focal point, and then do a sharp one coming directly down. It won't be 100% accurate because I'll try and highlight some of these sides here, and technically that would all be in shadow and yada yada yada. We're not going to be too accurate, you know. We're gonna go inspired by. Right, so sunset colors. So avoid the light blue, because that's not what we need for the sunset. We're going to start with our yellow, and feel free to pull out like a lighter yellow to start off with if you want to sketch out a shape. For me, I'm just kind of going for it. So we're just going to add in like a sharp directional point, and that's our starting point in the sun. So that's kind of like the last little glow of the sun on the hill. So I'm kind of imagining like a half circle. I'll put a little bit to the side behind this tree too, just for, you know, the fun of it. Now I'm going to colour over any falling snowdrops as well. I'm not going to worry about those. I'm not going to worry about snowflakes, because we'll come back in with either a Posca marker or gouache at the end, and we'll reblock those out. So for now, I don't really care about them. I just want to get the colour down, and it's a pain in the butt to colour over tiny little dots, like colour around tiny little dots. So we're just going to colour over them. So you can see I laid down my orange, and I'm now blending my yellow back into my orange. And I'm going to start blending this out a bit. So with the sunset, I'm now going to start extending. So it's not going to be a perfect round. It's going to be more like a, what's that? I think it's the omega sign. Just making sure what's on here. Just random notes. So sort of like that, but then like rounding out the edges so it tapers off. Is kind of the shape I'm going for. And that just allows me to sort of bring the orange into a few more places. Because again, I also like to try and bring colour all over. I love bringing colour in. I want as much rainbow as possible where I can. So yeah, now we're just working in the pink. And the great thing about water-soluble pencils is you don't kind of have to be like pedantic on your, like keeping your pressure even and making sure everything blends together perfectly. Like the water is going to take care of a lot of that for you. So you can see I just coloured over the smoke from the chimney there too. Again, we'll block that back out with gouache, so that's fine. That's easy to bring back in. I would rather focus on making sure I get all the colour down. Right, you can see now I'm kind of working on an angle as I start to bring in our light purple. And I am just going to bring in a little bit of pink here, just so we've got some extra colour in there. That will bring some of the purple back down into it. So it's sort of like transitioning between the two. And once again, we're just going to work over the snow. I am kind of working around the trees though. Do a sharper gradation off there. We'll start to bring in, move the book back. darker purple. So I find that there's not too much difference between these purples when you lay them down in pencil form. It's when you activate them that they go quite different. So and then we're going to start hinting at our night sky forming and bring in our blue. And I'm just going to bring in our purple a little bit, and I might bring that blue in just a little bit more. Cool, so that's our basic sky laid down, not activated yet, but laid down. And you know what, let's start by activating it. Why not? Why not? Let's get the sky nice and vibrant. So I have just some sort of random brush. This is a Das Flat 1/8, I guess. I don't know. I know my brushes. I have a couple of like really little brushes around too if need be. This is possibly not the right brush, but it's the one I grabbed. I have some water beside me and I have a tissue. So I'm just going to wet my brush and then take off a bit of the excess water on my tissue just so it doesn't like bubble onto the page, because of course this isn't technically the best water soluble paper. You can also remove these pages from the book to work on them. I'm not a fan of doing that. I like keeping my pages in my books, but I know a lot of people who work on these by taking them out of their books. And yeah, with the damp brush, I'm just dotting it onto the page. So I'm just dotting. So I'm not trying to move the pencil around. I'm just trying to wet and activate the pigment so that it becomes way more intense and vibrant and colourful. Because if you start like, you know, moving the brush around, you're moving the pigment of the pencil around, and that's actually a great technique that we're going to use later on. But right here in the sky, we want that pigment that we laid down to stay where we laid it down. We want that bright, vibrant sky. We don't want the lightness where the pigment has moved. It's a technique I used on the snow, so you will see that later on. But for now, we're just wetting, damping, and then dotting. And if you find that your sky isn't pigmented enough, you can always do a second coat, because the sunset should be pigmented. We do want a really vibrant sunset, because like if your snow is the same color as your sunset in terms of intensity, the snow is a reflection of the colors in the sky. So if you have a really pale sky and pale snow, like it's not going to look right. The snow is a paler version of the sky, so because it's the sky reflected in the white snow. I mean, the snow is not technically white, but you know, at least that's what I'm going for. Again, I don't even know if this is accurate. I don't know, it just worked for me. That was what I was thinking when I worked on it. I did look at a bunch of references of like people's photographs of snow, and just tried to look for like the most colourful snow references I could, because I wanted colour. I've been really like this Christmas season is the first season I've actually really focused on doing a bunch of Christmas colouring. Whoops, see, that's way too much water on the brush there. Now it's just sort of pooling on the page. It's okay, we removed half of it, and we'll just keep dampening up and dabbing out. But yeah, sorry. Last Christmas, I was actually in a car accident at the start of December. It was quite terrifying. I'm fully okay. The car was written off, but I'm okay. Between that and then my medical condition developing and me losing more of my eyesight, I did make the decision to stop driving. I mean, the eye doctors basically said you should not be driving, but yeah, it was very much like a between the car accident and then them saying that with the deterioration of my eyes, I was just like, yeah, we're not driving anymore. So not a risk for me right now. But yeah, last December was very, very intense. But because of where I was when I had the car accident, I got stuck out of town. I had a lovely friend that I stayed with, but I didn't have any of my Christmas colouring books because I was at her place for an additional 3 weeks while I was recovering. Not physically, like physically I walked away with just scratches and bruises, but I was very traumatized by it. And it took me a number of weeks to even get back into a car because of the significance of it. I was very, very lucky to walk away in the condition that I did. And so, yeah, basically I got stuck without any Christmas colouring books. So I didn't do any Christmas colouring last year, and by the time I got home, we were so far into the season and I just really wasn't in the space to do it. So, yeah, but this year, with all my books, I was like, yeah, all the Christmas colouring this year. And so I've been learning all these different techniques and ideas and things that I wanted to try, like snow, because snow is fun. But one of the things that I realised is that I like colouring a lot of rainbow. I've always known that I am a bright colourist. I do prefer colouring things with intense colours. I find it very difficult to do pastel. And so it's like it's a recurring theme into every page is how can I work a rainbow? How can I work bright colours and all the colours? And so that's kind of where this one started. Right, so there's the start of our sort of sunset sky. We may end up doing a second coat of that later on. But for now, let's get onto the snow. We know where our basic sky is. We know how we're operating. Alright. So, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the orange pencil that we just used to help with that sky transition. Re-put the colours in order. And then re-bring in the light blue. Now, you'll notice that the light blue goes at the end. So, we go from yellow, pink, light purple, dark blue, light blue. Now, remember how before I talked about our light source and how our source here would be casting a yellow light onto here. It doesn't mean that anything on this side isn't getting light, because this is not like a torch beam coming down. This is spreading out everywhere. So there is like residual light bouncing around. There is variation in light. So there are areas where we need to represent that it's lighter, but it's not the yellow that we need to represent for. And that's where the light blue comes in. It's our secondary light. I pulled out the bookmark. That was silly. Where's the page gone? Oh. Sorry, I was looking at Enchanted Christmas. That's not the page. That's not the example page. So, you can see here, this tree is a good example. We've got the yellow highlight here from the sun, and then we've got a bit of light underneath here, because there would be light bouncing from the snow and from the areas around it, but it wouldn't be yellow light. And so I've got a light blue in here, and I've used this in a snow here. For example, down here with these mounds that wouldn't be getting necessarily so much yellow, but still would be a bit lighter, we've gone in lighter blue. We've got some areas around here too, and we're going to use this to help us blend out some areas on here. So that's why we have the light blue, and the light blue sits at the end of this pattern. And I do recommend you keep your pencils in this order while you work. I found this very much easier for me when I worked with the pencils in this order, keeping my little light blue one to the side and then having these ones like this. Helped my brain while we did this. So let's start on the snow. Which one should we start off with? Let's start off with this pole here, because we've got a nice little area to work on and we can show a bunch of the techniques. I probably should sharpen a couple of these pencils as well. They're getting a bit tiny. So what we're going to do, because this pole would be getting some, oh gosh, I forgot about this pink the core of this pink is kind of shattered. It's okay. I think the Faber-Castell pink is very similar. I'm sure I have the Albert Dürer pink. No, I've got one of the brighter pinks. Okay, that's good to know. We'll just work very carefully when we sharpen it. So, because this is where our light is, we're going to be getting a bit of light on here. So I'm going to start with our yellow, and I'm going to just put some edge highlighting on the high points of the snow. Now, it's very tempting to just do like a line here like I just did, but you actually kind of want an uneven line because the snow has got texture. Even when it's piled up like this, there's still texture in the snow. So breaking it up and doing some areas that are further up, further in, just kind of helps it appear. Now you can see we've also got an indication here of an overlapping section. So this is a really good opportunity about the shadows. So this blue is our darkest blue. So it's going to go under this overhang. And I'm going to use a little bit towards the bottom. Where we wouldn't be getting the sun. So using the violet color, this goes in between. And will sort of be our blend up from there. Then we have our red violet. I'm going to use a little bit of this on the edges here and start bringing this up. Now I'm going to leave a little line around the bird, and when I bring this over here, I'm also leaving a line for that extra build up here. And it's also not touching any of the yellow because the pink is our yellow connector. So that's going over the red violet and up to the yellow. And then that little gap here that we left under the bird on that high point, we're just going to bring some pink in there because it's higher, but it's not quite the high edge. And then, because this is a high edge of snow, so it is getting some light, but it's not quite getting the highlight of the yellow, this is where we're going to put our blue. This is our highlight, but it's not sunset highlight. And that just helps break it up a little bit. Now the next stage of doing this, I'm just looking for a certain brush. Because the flat is good for the background, but I think I need a bit of a, yeah, something like that should work a bit better. I like new brushes. So we've got a bit more of like a round tip here. Same idea, into the water. Take off any excess beading, because we want the brush damp, but we don't want it soaking. We're going to start with the lightest color, which is our yellow. And this time we are going to try and drag and scrape the color a little bit. And the reason for this is we want our colors to sort of meld together, but we're also going to be picking up pigment as we do this. Because again, our snow is not meant to be as intense as the skyline. So if we pick up any excess color, we can kind of move it around a little bit and it makes the snow just that little bit more paler, and you can kind of push colors into certain areas. So you'll have areas where it is a little bit more pigmented and areas where it's a little bit more faded. So now we're getting into the dark area. And then with my brush clean, you can kind of just push and almost scrape away some of the color. Don't saturate the paper too much because you don't want to completely distort it and start ripping it up. But you can kind of push the pigment around a little bit. Now if you find the colour is too intense for your liking, you can also fade it down with a white pencil. Some areas I did do a lot more pigmented than others. So, like our snowman here, like the blue in particular always looks very pigmented. So I know right now this just looks like this is a lot, but when we come in and lighten with the gouache, it also tones this back a little bit. So try not to freak out at this stage. I know it looks scary. I know, but trust the process. Alright, so let's do another area. Let's do the snowman. So the snowman is a similar concept in that we've got the yellow directly on the side. Now, trying to keep in mind the shape of the snowman, because this is again not a flat surface. So there might be some areas where the yellow is a little bit more extended in. We also have some objects that are causing shadow as well to consider. So gonna add a bit of a blue. A star would be causing a shadow, but it's a little further ahead, so it would be a cast shadow from a distance. Got a little bit of shadow here. Gonna add a little bit under that scarf, behind the arm here. For me, I like putting in my shadows first. I find it easier to work with shadows in first. If you prefer to work light to darks, please by all means do so. I mean, these are water soluble pencils, so again, it doesn't matter too much. Like, you're going to blend them anyway, so it doesn't really matter what order you put them down. That's adult water, and that's going to affect my brain. And then we'd have a little bit here. So we're just keeping the pressure light, and it doesn't matter too much as well if we have some areas where we don't quite fill in the pigment of the pencil. I do try to work when I'm laying down the pencils. I have found that working in a more circular motion is a bit better. I find that if I like just go straight up and down, you get those linear lines and they don't always blend out too well. And that's what I find the most annoying about water soluble pencils, is really obvious lines of you've been using water soluble pencils and it hasn't blended out right. I don't like that, so I find this is just a good way to sort of go about it. So I'm just going to use this light purple as a bit of a filler there, and then I'm going to do the same over here, and I'm going to use this light blue and just bring this in a bit, because this is obviously a little bit more on our shadow side. I'm just going to bring in a bit of that blue. Right, so the head is kind of hidden behind a hat, so a lot of this is actually in shadow. Oop, out of order. Cool. So that'll be our snowman, and we'll activate him in a second. But for now, I'm going to show you the pathway. So the pathway is made up of the like compressed snow, because in my head, this is where they're walking. And I mean, you could do it as if they scraped it off. I like the idea of just making it compressed snow, which is tackled a bit differently to the mounds that we've kind of done, which is the snowman in this. So like the piles on top of the fence, the snowman, the piles on top of here, the piles on the tree, like those are all things we're going to kind of tackle in the same way of what I just showed you. So now I'll show you how I tackle this more compressed pathway, and this is possibly how I would also tackle maybe a frozen river, but that's up to you as well. So again, I like to work shadows, so I'm going to start with shadow, and I'm going to place some areas of dark, either areas that would have natural shadows anyway, just areas where it might be a bit more built up. And this was easy like areas where there might be texture, and I'm following kind of lines that are already put in here. So for example, this line here, we're going to pretend that's sort of like a little ridge there. Got another little ridge there. So we'd have a bit of shadow from the footpath here. This one I'm just going to kind of keep a bit loose and do our our bumpy shading. But then with these ones here, you'll see I'm working in a straight line. And that's one of the big differences here, is we're working in a straight line for this compressed snow texture. So try not to add too many. You can always add more. But we are starting with our dark. And behind here, is that meant to be wood or a gap in the fence? I've just coloured that as a gap as the fence, but I don't actually like that. We're going to come back to that. Just going to remove all that. Pretend that didn't happen. Let's add another line there. So this is where I found having the colours in order really useful, because anywhere where the lines are, that's sort of the bottom of the texture. That's the bottom of the shadow. So we need to work backwards off our little order here. So there's a line here. So let's add a purple. Let's add a purple. And so I'm going on top and adding a bit of height, and then just extending out the line a little bit. Same here. And up here it kind of starts to connect. So we'll just connect those two together. Still working incredibly light, working very linear. Bringing our shadow a little forward here, and then we're going to add in some purple lines without a blue base. Oh, we've got one here. Let's add a line there, and then we forgot one here. I'm just going to extend that one right up. Alright, now in the snow, in certain areas, I didn't actually add too much of this colour. I tried to let the pink do more of the work, but there are some areas where I felt like this colour, this warm red violet, was okay. The reason for this is that the red violet is a very intense red violet. So in some areas I felt like it was too intense, so that may not be the case with your light purple. See how you go. I'm going to add little touches, but I am going to go a bit light with the red violet, just because I know mine is very pigmented. Now I have used it in a couple areas up here. I do like to use it. It's just a personal thing with me. I like the contrast of the really cool purple and then the warm pink and yellow. So now we're going to come in with our pink. So here's going to kind of join up a little bit. And remember, we can always add some more. So, same again, adding to and extending. So, adding to the height, extending out the width. Some of these are getting a bit joined up now. Cool. And then we've got our yellow. So I've got quite a good little cluster there. Don't forget this little area in here behind the arm branch. Also going to make sure we've got a very defined ridge there from Teresa's illustration. Same with here. So I'm just going to make sure I add in some intense yellow there. Now you might be looking at this and go, okay, but we have some areas where we have no colour. this is where our light blue comes in. So this is our fill-in color. So anywhere where we have those little areas, we don't need to cover this 100%, but we do want a little bit, like this big area here. That's a big area. Now this doesn't have to be filled 100%, but we can add a bit in. And a lot of these areas are butting up to the dark blue. So where we're butting up to the dark blue, I'm bringing the light blue right up to the dark blue, because again, these two can blend together. Cool. All right. So it looks very like here right now. I know. We're going to activate this in a second. I've got to pop to the bathroom, and then we're going to go and activate. Okay. Back. Refill of the water. We're both moving into summer here. I've been trying to really push my water consumption. Also pushes your bathroom usage. Yay! Also, town is now started because I live in the centre of town, and I'm filming this at 10:30 on a Friday night. So apologies if you hear like pumping bass music. It is one of the annoying parts of where I live. Alright, so let's activate this footpath. So you can already tell that this footpath is way more pale than like our main features. I actually like that process because it allows for like certain elements like our snowman to stand out. I'm going to do the same on the fence. I'm going to keep the fence quite intense, but I'll keep like the background quite light. So same process as before, just activating and kind of smushing our colors together. Now because all our colors are in a bit of a weird random order here, it can make this kind of difficult. The main thing to remember is the yellow is likely to go very muddy. Way too much water there. Let's get rid of those note pages. Just looking at some of my books that I had that I could have possibly printed out. So yeah, just trying to like anywhere the yellow's involved, that's real easy to go muddy. So I usually try to start with the yellow, activating the yellow and letting that be sort of the predominant activation, just so I don't lose that yellow. Then everything else, like the pink, purple and blue, blend together really well. The orange might help like that, but also I like the snow being more on the purple blue side. That pink, purple, blue is like the primary colors I want in the snow, but I want those little touches of yellow to reflect the little touch of yellow in the sky, but it's predominantly pink, purple, blue. Again, I don't know if this is accurate. I just like it. Like, at the end of the day, like, who cares if stuff isn't accurate? If you're just happy with how it works, that's like the most important thing. Like, another way that I could have done the snow is I could have done green undertones, because like the grass under the snow, maybe it's like a real fine dusting of snow, you know? There's a few different ways that we could have done it. As long as I like it, then that's it. And I still have a very strong desire to completely cover a snow page in glitter, because I also really like glitter. And I have some new glitters that I want to try. So, you know. So yeah, we're just activating and blending, and whoop, cleaners out in the hallway knocking stuff out. Blending our snow. So you'll see, like there in the pink, I also kind of merged up and down because it is looking a little linear. And I feel like even though I coloured a lot of them linear in my previous piece, I'm pretty sure like I started moving that up and down just so they wouldn't be so linear. Like they still want to be a little linear. We still want them compared to like other areas that we're going to do. We still want them to have a bit of a blend. Alright. I know, we're looking like a hot mess. It's one of those you gotta trust the process. Like, this is not gonna look right until we get to the gouache stage, which unfortunately is like one of the very last stages. So it's one of those you kind of just gotta trust how bad it's looking right now. It's just, yeah. It's the gouache or like the paint pen or the effect of those that's really gonna make it. Now we're getting up to this really dark shadowy area. Just kind of blending that all out. Making sure we've got everything activated. Missed a big spot of yellow there. We can always go in and add more colour. We can also, again, add in with the white pencil if we want to. But we have got quite a beautiful and quite pale area here. And so since we're here, we're going to do our snowman. So same thing as before. In fact, I'll move the tissue here. So you can already see how much of the pigment I've already picked up off the page. We're going to wet, scrape, and you can kind of pick up some of the pigment if you don't want it as intense. Because for me, like, yes, I know I could like lay down less pencil on the page, but then again, you get that really obvious you've used water soluble pencils and you haven't coloured in every area note. And so I'd rather loosely colour in every area, blend it, and then pick up some of the excess pigment. Because then at least you don't get those really obvious colouring lines. I hope you all know what I mean when I say that. I know, it's one of the reasons why I hadn't used water soluble pencils for a long time, because I didn't like them for that. I was using Inktense a lot, and I still really love my Inktense. But they're really hard to get the pastel tones in because they're so intense. Like, they're very vibrant. So that's why I pulled out the water solubles, because I wanted a more lighter pastel-y tone. And when I kind of figured this out, it's opened up a whole new thing of, oh, okay, these water soluble pencils are kind of cool. And I've been playing with them a lot more. I've got a few pieces recently that use the Koh-I-Noor pencils. You can also just use your tissue and just straight pick up pigment. Just be careful, because sometimes it can like dab into other areas, like on the hat here. You can just grab your water and sort of blend it out a bit. But yeah, there is our snowman and our footbath. And again, notice how there's no white. Notice how we haven't used white. I'm actually thinking I need to add a bit more blue into here. This is looking a little pale when compared to everything else, because we have gone so intense on the snowman. But we'll colour in the rest, and then we can always add in another coat. As I said, I'm going to add in another coat to the sky as well. But for now, let's talk about the snow on the rooftops. The droppy snow. So this is actually quite similar to this pole at the start here, really. But the thing is, when you're laying down these colours, we're kind of following the ridge pattern that's been laid out. So we had a long drop there, so there's a lot more yellow coming down. We're going quite short here. Only exception is that little ridge there, because it's drawn in as a highlight. So we've got that swoop there, and then a little swoop, then we come down a little bit. So yeah, just following the pattern of the roof to create that sort of droppy texture. Now we've got an interesting situation here, because we have a chimney, and again, this is our light source, so behind here would be in shadow. But what I like to do with these sort of areas is, again, I leave that top highest point where it would still be a bit light, and that's where I like to use my light blue. So you still get that sense of depth, because this is our shadow colour, but it also makes clear this is in the shadow. Then we're going to have a very tight little blend in here. In fact, I am going to skip to our warm purple, because this works as our, we're only going to get one colour in there. So this kind of is our in-between. done the out of order again. Just makes it easier on my brain. So adding in our pink. We're not really going to get much more than 2 to 3 colors in these sort of blends at the side here, but that's fine because we're also going to be following that same process of the sky and shading it as we go along. So if you see here, this side we've got more pinks and purples, and then as we come down we've got more blues on this side. So we're going to be following that same notion here where yes, we have a little bit of shadow there, but on this side we've really got a lot more pinks and yellows because it is getting a lot more of the sun on this side, the setting sun. And then as we get to this side, we'll bring in more of the pinks, the purples and blues. So again, I've kind of gone a bit intense here. It's really in my notion, like, to put in lots of pigment, lots of color. I really struggle with pastels. It is something I really do struggle with because I'm like, more color, more pigment. It's like, no, we're trying to be pastel-y. We're trying to be light here. So, yeah, I'm probably going to have a little bit of gouache work, possibly, because when I go over the lines, in fact, let's talk about this now because we are a little bit away. And some of you might not want to wait, or you can skip ahead to the end of the video, I guess, though. Helps the algorithm if you watch the whole thing of videos, just saying. But also this is already going to be a really long one. But yeah, so when we get up to doing the gouache, you can see I've got a real lineless quality to this, and that is because I use the gouache to block out the lines. But then the other thing I could do, because gouache is, when you lay it down solidly, it's opaque. It is thick acrylic, but then you can actually water it down. Trying to find my like actual paint, the little piece of paper I was using to paint on, but I might have chucked it away. When you water down the gouache, it goes like watercolor, and so the great thing in that is that you can lay down these thick colors, but then you can actually drag it across to affect the tone of certain areas. Like this one here, I think originally I had that quite bright pink, and I was like, no, that's meant to be a lot more blue tone. So when I put in a bit of the dark blue and I shaded it up, and I could drag it up a bit with some water to help shade out the shadows. So that's something that you can also keep in mind, is that when it comes time to doing the gouache, like with the white edges that we will put on, we can drag it a bit into the yellow to lighten up even further and create those lighter tones. We can put white over areas. So definitely we need more lightness on this side, but I also like the fact that this snowman is in quite a bit of shadow. So yeah, you know. Alright, so when we get round to this side, this little ridge here represents our high point. So all of that would be our purple, and then we can match our drop. This house has got so many details, it's going to take a while to do all of our house. And I just realized that there's also these areas here that we need to colour on. So we still carry on our yellow all the way across the top, and I'm going to bring a little bit onto these edges, but just a little bit. I flipped all my order around again. I will do that a lot, but again, I just find it a lot easier if I have that order in place. Alright, so now we're going to start working on blending out the house, and again, even though there's no indication of it here, I am working more uneven in the line edge again, similar to how we did down there, because it's not a straight line across. We want it to have differences in dimension and reflect the different texture of the snow, which means that it's not a straight line. So let's use our dark blue down here. Oh my gosh, town is getting so loud now. I might have to switch this into time lapse in a moment. Just because I'm very worried about copyright and my microphone picking up on town and town's ridiculous noise. Because, yeah, joys of living in the center of town and trying to record videos. Oh, I'm gonna have to see how bad this is and see if I can figure out something with the audio. As long as it's not picking up all the copyrighted sounds. If it's picking up a bit of bass, I can forgive that. Like, the bass is workable. Though it's very loud. I don't get much sleep on a Friday or a Saturday night, as you can imagine. So, yeah, I end up doing a bit of colouring on those nights, but usually by the time I'm pretty exhausted. I've been pretty exhausted non-stop lately, to be perfectly honest. Alright, I'm going to use our pink down here just to create some fun high points on the snow here. And then I've still got all up the top here. There's a lot of snow in this piece. So let's get a bit of nope, nope. And blue. I think we're going to need to put some blue in there just to make sure we really define it separately from the house that's already there. Just give that real little bit of contrast. I'm going to even add a little bit along the bottom here. And then I'm going to use our light blue. Make sure we get those sides. Alright. So, I've coloured all that. I haven't contemplated the fact we have a bit of a shadow here, so we're just going to add in a bit more blue around here. Now, technically, if this window is lit, that should be providing a light source. So whatever colour is glowing in there would also be glowing out in here. So I've already coloured that. So I'm going to have to pretend that window is not got a light on. But if we have lights on in any of these windows, we need to decide that now, because that is going to affect the colour around it and the snow around it. Because I've coloured in most of these with no lights on, it's going to be, again, we can come in with gouache and we can add in some light in there. We have got balcony things there. We could possibly do that one, because it doesn't have to be much of a glow. It could be that one. So we might do that one and say that that window's on. Possibly that one could be a little bit too, but I think that one's going to be our best bet. And I might do that orange just to like tie in that orange of the sky, but also bring that in. I'll decide that a little later on when I go to do all those bits. Again, I kind of want to get this point done so I can switch into time-lapse mode and not have to worry about copyright sounds, because town's only going to get louder. I think, because again, the gouache being the last stage of this, kind of going to take a while. Wondering if there's any area I can finish off entirely and then I can pull out the gouache and show you, so we don't have to do the whole page of everything. Or maybe, oh no, because the gouache is essential to how we do the snow, so I kind of want to get that all in one video. Okay, I will think about this while we activate. So you can see there I accidentally moved the blue right into that yellow and we went very muddy there. And also, because I added a lot of pigment around here, I am removing. that's quite why I like these Koh-I-Noor pencils too, is that they are surprisingly pigmented for how cheap they are. So like Albert Dürer pencils, the Faber-Castell Polychromos or the Albert Dürers, they cost me $3.99 per pencil now to buy individually. I have the full set of Polychromos, and I've built that collection up over the years. And then I've also got the polys, the Prismas, sorry. I've just gotten the last couple of ink tints I needed for the original 72 colours. The extra 28 are not available to me anywhere in New Zealand. I can get them in from overseas, but they're very pricey for me to bring in. So I might just wait until they come in, because also, like, if I use one of them up, I can't replace it individually at the moment. So I might just wait until Derwent makes them available individually to me here in New Zealand. I'm sure eventually they will come out here, but I'm considering that set done. So the next set that I wanted to finish was my Albert Dürers, because how I buy pencils is every time I need to order a restock, or if they go on sale or something, I try to buy a couple at a time until I build up the full set. So I was lucky there. I did have, I think it's a set of 24 of the Albert Dürers, and then I think one of them's lost, so I feel like I haven't got the full 24. But yeah, and then I was just going to build them out from there. But I never really used them, so it became my last priority, especially after I discovered ink tints, because the ink tints pencils I love. And so I was like, okay, we'll just put off doing the Albert Dürers and we'll go for the ink tints, because I'm using those a lot more. But I got these Koh-I-Noor ones on impulse. I brought a couple of colours to try, not realising they were water solubles, and so I got them and I was like, oh, okay. And then I can't even remember what project I tried them on, but it's like, wow, these are surprisingly good, like in terms of pigmentation. And then recently I was doing a page and I needed some water soluble pencils for it, and these ones are around, and so like, okay, I'll just try the Koh-I-Noors again. Like, they're here. I'll try these ones. Because again, I needed the more pastel colours. And yeah, I was just really impressed with how good they went on the page. And since then, I've been using them a lot more. So, but the thing is, the Koh-I-Noors are only $1.69 for me to buy. So they're also way cheaper, and they do come in a really big colour range, and I can buy them individually. So it's like, okay, well, maybe this is a route to go. Like, we'll grab a set of those, and then I will see how much I actually use the water soluble pencils, and then we'll decide if I need the full 120 Albert Dürers, because again, I've got the Polychromos, so it's like, I've got the colours, it's just, do I need the water soluble versions, you know? And also you can use Albert Dürers dry. But it's like, if I'm going to invest that much into another set of pencils, I'd rather invest them into Pablos, because I know the Pablos by Caran d'Ache will work well with the polys, which is my primary pencil. I primarily use Polychromos pencils, and I can use those Polychromos pencils and the Pablos together and just expand the colour range, because as much as I love my polys, there's definitely colours missing in that set. Like, there's definitely colours, and the Pablos fill a couple of those voids. So, and it's not like I need the full set of Pablos, because again, I'm using them as a colour expander. So trying to figure out what colours specifically in the Pablos are not in the polys, because the Pablos are even more expensive than the polys. But again, I can get them individually here, so it is another option. I'm not interested in getting, like, I know a lot of people said, why don't you get the Arteza pencils or the Black Widow pencils and stuff like that. I'm not interested in a pencil set where I cannot replace colours individually, where there's not open stock available. Because to me, nothing would frustrate me more if I found that perfect colour, I found that pencil that I loved, but then I had to buy a whole set just to replace one colour. That just seems wasteful to me. So anything that I can't get open stock, not interested in. And then some pencils that are available to open stock to some people are not available open stock here in New Zealand, and if I have to spend $30 to get one pencil shipped to me internationally, well, no, that's also not worth it. So yeah, that's where I have to look at what is available to me locally and what I can actually replace individually. So yeah, it's all these sort of things. I don't need more pencils as well. I'm very happy between the polys, the Prismas, and the Inktense. I work on them a lot. You don't need lots of pencil ranges. The Prismas and the polys each have different functions. I use them in different ways. Inktense again has a different function, and then I'm finding the water soluble has a different function. So it's like I could just complete the Koh-I-Noor set, because we're halfway there essentially. Could just complete this set, and I think that would be a good range of water solubles. They're cheap, they're easily replaceable to me, and yeah, it's like cool, done. Alright, so let's get on to this hill and let me show you how we're working the hills. The hills are worked very similar to the mounds again, but just keeping in mind things like we have a tree here, so there'll be a little bit of a shadow, but then trees might also be back a little bit, so you know, don't have to do it right up to the edge of the hill, but there'd be a little bit of a get back in order. And it's just working that same order across. So I'm just going to work right over the tree shadows there and just blend them into the pink a bit. They'll naturally make some purple. And then we're going to bring down our... I think we're going to bring that pink down a bit more. Did I just work the colours flat? I feel like these hills might be a bit bigger than the hills I was working. Yeah, they are. So they are quite a bit bigger. So I did quite a bit of the pink purple, and then I just had little touches of blue where it came down. So let's follow that idea, keeping in mind that the hill extends quite a bit down. So we've got our house here with a bit of a shadow from the house. And I'm gonna bring our light blue in. I forgot the tree shadows up there. We'll add those in a second. Right, these ones are like direct in the sun. So they would have shadows, but it's going to get really muddy if I actually add those in now. I'm going to come back and add those in afterwards, just so we avoid too much muddiness, because that is essentially all yellow and pink. And I'll pull out a bit of this rosy, the purple, the red violet. We'll use that just to separate those hills a little bit more. Right, so this is our little shadow area. A little bit of that. A little bit of the rosy purple. And then we can get into our pink, which means we can then bring it into our yellow that's over here. Then we'll bring back out the more rosy purple. So again, we're working over any of the snowdrops, anything like that. And so one of the big things that I also try to do is I try to make sure that any areas that are touching have different contrasting colors to make it also really obvious when we do the highlighting that, you know, it's not yellow on yellow or anything like that. So I am going to use a bit of the darker purple down here just to really, it's not as accurate, but also it just really defines the house a little bit. And then we're going to also do just a touch of blue again to just really define that house, just a little touch. You can see how messily I chucked down the pencil. Right, now is that actually... We're going to do that as a hill. That could possibly just be a chord. I'm going to do that as a hill just so that it kind of breaks us up and we don't have to go dark blue down there. Because if it's a hill, that means we can turn that yellow for the sunset and then we get to bring in another colorway. Again, trying to work in as many rainbows as possible, but also just giving us that little bit of contrast. So I don't know if that was a actual change there or not, but meh, it is now. And that's good because we could technically pull out the gouache in this little area here, and I could show you a little area of gouache, even though it won't be the whole page done. Alright, let's activate. So again, we're starting with our brightest color, the yellow, because the yellow is very easy to turn muddy. Removing the excess, you can see it's trying to pick up some of the blue. So we're just going to try and make sure we keep that clean. So Teresa Goodridge books are single-sided, so I don't have to worry too much about bleed through. Obviously it can go through and stain the page behind it, but I've never really had an issue with that. I use a little bit too much water there, but really that's the most that will happen. If you're not comfortable with it, feel free to chuck a piece of paper behind it. Feel free to remove it from the book if you're using Teresa Goodridge. These are removable pages in Creative Haven. Yeah, I find also, like, this is not water soluble paper. Technically, it's not watercolor paper. It works alright. Like, as long as you don't saturate the page, I find it works alright. It's when you start saturating the page that we tend to have a few problems. Mostly with the page. Like, I don't mind if the page buckles a bit. I quite like the sound. Like, I like that little crinkle. That makes me really happy. But I know some people don't like that sound. And also, by the time this is done and goes and lives on my shelf, and is compressed by the pressure of all the books on my shelves, like, that's gonna, any sort of buckling, that's gonna be weighed down a bit. It's gonna be fine. But if you're not confident in it, feel free to remove it from the book. If you're not working in Teresa Goodridge and you're working in a different book, like, you know, having a page behind is always a good option if you're not sure. Just do a little test to see how the paper handles it. If you're working double-sided, I find, again, because we're using such little water, it's not too bad. It's, yeah, water-soluble media can be used in double-sided colouring books, and I do it all the time. It's mostly just making sure you're not using too much water, because when you're using water, it's saturating right down the page, and there's that risk of the pigment bleeding through and going through and being visible on the other side. And for the most part, it's never been too much of an issue for me. At most, I've maybe had a spot or two that's bled through that's been easily fixable on the other side. So, yeah. Alright, now we're up to this little blue section. So you can see I did that section separately because I didn't want to get too much cross through. So I'm going to blend out this edge a little bit, and you can see, because I don't want to merge the blue into the yellow and cause a weird bleed there, I'm doing that by sort of pushing the pigment towards the blue side. Alright, so technically I also need to come back and do the roof of this little house up here because that's in shadow. Possibly should do in here as well. In fact, we'll use the excess with pulling from here. Just colour in there. I'll probably go in and darken that a little bit with pink in a moment. We'll get that a second to dry. See if there's anywhere. So here we haven't got the best of blends. So I'm just going to scrape and kind of push some pigment around while it's still not quite dry. So we're getting there. Again, no white on the page right now. Not too bad on reverse either. So, again, because of the wonderful town noise around and because I'm a little worried, I'm going to put you in time-lapse mode and I'm just going to see if I can knock out a bunch more of the ground. I'm going to go back over the sky to make the sky a lot more intense. Knock a bit more over. I may end up adding some more colour into this. I will decide after I've filled in a lot more of the white. As I've talked about before, white on the page is your enemy because it affects how the other colours look when there's a lot of white on the page. So getting more colour onto the page will help me realise if this is too pale, if I want to add some more colour in there, but I need to get more onto the page to do that. So I'm going to fill in all these areas around here, redarken the sky, do a bit more of these areas, and then I will come back to you. Okay, so we are all coloured in except for one area that I missed that I realised as soon as I started recording. Whoops. You'd get a little bit of yellow, you're rich. So we'll just shade quickly. So you can see now we've got a lot more of the whites covered and it's definitely making a bit of a difference in terms of the colour balance, and I'm a lot happier with it now. In terms of the shading, it looked really intense at first. It's still quite intense, but it's still, now we've got more shaded, it looks more appropriate, but definitely this is too light, as I suspected it would be. It's usually what happens. There's usually one area I do have to go back and touch up. You would have seen as well that I did go back and add another coat to the sunset as well to make the sunset really intense. Also had a bug try and land on the page and then I accidentally killed it. And now we've got a trail from that. So that's going to be fun to figure out how to clean that up. Yeah, stupid bugs. Anyway, so I'm pretty happy with the layout of the footpath. I'm happy with the brightness of the yellow of the footpath. But what I want to actually darken is the blues, because I feel like the blues aren't in comparison to everything else. So what we're going to do is everywhere that we put our blue, we're going to add another coat. And this is one of the great things about using water-soluble media, is we can chuck a layer down, and if we're not happy with it, we can chuck down some more. So we're going to add in a bit more of the dark blue. Just bump up those shadow tones. Just because everywhere else the blue, you know, the blue has an intensity, and that's kind of not being replicated here. And then we're going to grab our purple. And so it's the same thing as before, just adding in another coat. And then some more pink. And I find the pink is actually, the pink gets quite washed out in this one. We lose the pink quite a bit, so I might go a bit heavy-handed with the pink as well. Again, I'm happy with the intensity of the yellow. I feel like the yellow is appropriate here, but it's everything else that just needs a little bump up in comparison. Alright, let's give that a go. Oh, we just had a big water droplet fall onto the page. That's fine, it will dry clear. You won't even tell. So yeah, if you're not happy with anything, you can just also work back over it. There's a couple of areas of shading that is incorrect. So this area here, I put yellow on the snow edges here as if it was catching the light, but then there would be a bit of yellow on this hill. But then also I remembered after I did all this that we were going to make the windows look like they had lights on. So yeah, we have an issue there with the window situation. So I'm actually going to have to rectify that one. I'm probably going to colour the inside of the window orange, and then we're going to, when I do the edges in the gouache, I'm going to put orange, and I'll probably end up just essentially painting over it and using orange fading into a blue or something. I know, I'll figure that one out when I come to it. For now, we're going to get this activated. And there we go, that's already looking a ton better. Now it looks like it's in the same family in terms of the shading. Alright, so I think we've got all the snow. There is still areas on this tree up here. I'm not too fussed about that because the trees will be doing a bunch with the gouache later on. So it'll just be going in the same as I did over there, but all one direction. Basically yellow this side, gradiating it across. Oh, excuse me. I think I've got all the snow now. No, there's another bit there as well. So it's going to be one of those, like, as I colour, I'm going to find more areas of snow. We're not going to worry about that too much right now, because I think what I want to do is I want to get on to showing this gouache technique so that I don't have to spend hours, because there's still hours upon hours of work to finish the page. But yeah, so you can see on this page I went quite lineless. The point of the gouache was to cover up the lines, but to also add in our highlights, to add in those variations and to just really bring the page together. We've gone quite a bit darker on this one, but I quite like it. It feels like that was the start of sunset, and now we're really intense sunset on this one. Right, where are my gouache? Here are my gouache. Gouache, I don't know. I'm going to get some new ones. These are like cheap as chips. The cheap as chip ones. They're just RenoArt, which is just like a no-name white label brand. But you know, they do the job. I brought them again to try to figure out if I liked gouache paint. I actually really do, so I do think I want to invest in a better brand. I really like the look of the Himi jelly ones. They look cool. They look like a fun texture. But yeah, I'm just grabbing a piece of scrap paper to just use as a palette, because it's what I have around me. I have actual palettes somewhere, who knows where, it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to use some scrap paper and knock my microphone. Right, so the main gouache colour we're going to need is white. I've almost used up all that tube, so I probably need to get some more gouache. This music's gone really, really loud all of a sudden. Alright, let's turn that down a bit. Cool, yep, we did. Cool. I had it loud while I had yellow on time lapse because of the town noise going on. Alright, so we also, as well as our white, I've pulled out a yellow because we've got yellow highlights, and then we need to create the blue. So I had real issues with this last time because, as you can see, this is quite a green blue. And then the other blue in this set, it's still quite a green blue. So yeah, I'm also going to pull out purple and try adding a bit of purple to tie it down a little bit, but even then it's a very red purple. I'm just going to have to play to see if I can figure out to make more of a like cool blue situation. Might end up adding in some black or something. Try to avoid it, but you gotta do what you gotta do. Alright, so those are essentially what we need. We need a blue, a white, and a yellow. And super fine brush. So I'm going to look for an area where we've got, I'll try and do the line technique on areas like here, for example, where we've painted all around, because this should be done as the final step. When I'm going to work over areas with the water soluble pencils to colour it in, if I have done this gouache line immediately, when I activate the pencils, the gouache is going to be reactivated. Even once it's dry, it can be reactivated. So please keep that in mind. This is normally done at the end, but I'm just doing it now so that we can sort of wrap up this video and show you what I would do. So we're going to pull out a bit of white. Also, a good thing about gouache is that if the paints dry out, you can just reactivate them as well. They're quite cool. Again, I really would like to get some more, especially a blue that isn't so green. Well, that's way too much blue. My bad. Alright, and then we're just going to pull out some of our experiment colours down the side here. I only want the tiniest amount of black because I really don't want to be using that, but we've got it there. I probably have not pulled out anywhere near enough white either. Oh, I can smell my food cooking. 2 seconds. Dangerous game, cooking while you're trying to film a video. Alright, I've just turned it off for now. Can just sit there. So, I'm going to start with one of our blue highlights. So, if you're lucky enough to have a set where you have a colour that works, lucky for you. I am going to have to customise something. So what I'm trying to do is make a blue that is very similar to the ice blue, but a bit lighter. Like quite a bit lighter. In fact, rather than pulling from that pile of white, might just be easier because we're going to need a bit. It's always easier to darken, but it's kind of hard to lighten. So always make it lighter than you think you'll need. You can always lighten again. And so we're going to start on the side here. And I'm just going to start by working over the lines with our tiny brush. I'm going to move the palette that side because I can see me dipping my hands into the palette. So unfortunately there's no fast way to do this. It's just working slowly and carefully. But if you like the lineless look, it's a great way to do it. And you can immediately see the contrast and why we want to have like variations in tones between two sections, because when we remove the lines it makes it really obvious. Now over those lines I'm going to work again, and I'm going to kind of bunch up some areas. So like the line was, you know, a line, oh this paper's too textured to show you. Alright, so the line was like that, a nice smooth line, and now I'm going to work over it and just try and create some dimension, because again, snow is not flat. It's got a bit of texture, so it's okay if we come up a little bit. And then, now that we've got that in place, take off some of that excess in our water, and we're going to water this down, and that'll make a watercolor, and we can use that to sort of drag it over our page. And just with like the excess on the brush, just start working it into the area that is here, and it will start picking up some of the watercolor from underneath, but also just fade out slightly. So yeah, this is one of those things, it takes time. Unfortunately, this technique takes time, but it produces such a beautiful look, and I love how it looks. And so you can like darken up that crisp edge on areas if you want to. And again, this is why I like using the gouache, because here, the white on its own, this might be like too much of a contrast. So we can like take a little bit of the blue with the white, grab some of that water just to thin it down a bit. We can use that to sort of tint our highlight edge color that is here. So it's very obvious that it's not a royal blue when I do this. So it's very obvious it's got a green undertone. So I'm just going to bring that back to a brighter edge. And then anywhere that we want like a really sharp contrast, this is where you can chuck on some pure white and just give like a really distinct highlight on top. It just makes that sort of edge pop, and I like to do it in like just sections, so not the whole thing is white, just like these highlights on the highlights basically. It just gives a really sharp contrast. Alright, so let's not drop the mic. Forgot it was on the book. So let's do over here, because we can work around this bird, and then I can show you the yellow. So flip a little canvas around. So again, I've pulled all this out early, but also like I can reactivate this later on, so I'm not too worried. So just going to make a lovely pale yellow. I'm going to start working that around in the yellow sections. So you'll have sections where like maybe it's more purple, it's more pink, same thing. You can just work a bit of purple into there. On the previous page I used just the blue and the yellow, and I just kind of smushed it together in certain areas. But in this one, I think because the purple is a bit more prominent on here, I will use more of the actual, I will probably make a real pastel purple, and anywhere like down here I might use a little bit of purple edge highlighting. This one's a little bit more vibrant, but I actually really like it. Again, it's like a more getting closer to nighttime sunset compared to the previous one. It's just very intense, but it's cool. I'm all about trying to find as many ways to include colours as possible. And so for all those little snowfalls that we coloured over, I'm going to just use the pure white gouache to dot in there. And I will probably go over them with Stickles Glitter Glue as well, or just like last time, so they become the sparkly bits on there. You can also add in extras, which is nice. Right, so as you can see in this section here with our yellow edge lighting, we have lost like definition where two sections may cross over. So you can kind of tell a little bit there where this section starts to fade down because these secondary, but it has kind of gotten a bit lost. So there is a way, this is where using the pure white, because we can put the pure white on the highest edge and that just gives some contrast between the two. So highlighting the highlights essentially. There's extra highlighting steps, it's not essential. You definitely don't have to do all this. But I also think it's quite fun. Like, I've never been someone who really enjoyed painting mediums, but I've been really enjoying doing this for the edges and stuff. Alright, while we're here, let's make up a purple. It's probably way too much purple. Take that dirty blue section, because it's okay if it's a little bit more on the blue side. I'll tone down some of that bright red. Alright, a little bit more pastel, please. That might be too pastel. Yeah, it's probably a little on the too pastel side. Kind of just looks grey when we put it on there. Interesting. Let's try way more. See if that's the key. Okay, yeah. More intensity. Answer once again is more pigment. So yeah, this purple tone, I think I'll use that in here where we have our secondary section. So we cover over the lines. And then I can also drag it up. Sort of help blend the tones together. And this is great as well if like you need to fix up any overspill, anything like that. And then of course we've got our blue down here. So down here we're not really the same as over here where we had a highlight. We're actually more into the shadows. So this is where I am going to work a little bit darker. Alright. You are way too... You're way too green base. Again, it's really frustrating that the set does not come with a proper blue. And we're kind of having to see what we can improvise here. It is a very green toned. Even that grey, that blue, bleh, even that black, it's got a green tone to it. Maybe if I pull some brown in? No, the brown is like a real terracotta. Only problem with a cheap set is the colours are not quite right. So see how we go with this. Chucking some purple. Chucking more blue. Watch me make the right colour and then never be able to colour match it again. At least I'm recording. I can look at the process and go, oh yeah. Okay, it's still way too navy. Water it down a bit and it's not so bad. If we blend it up a bit, we might make it a bit more believable, and we can use this to really contrast under those upper drips. So this is why I like gouache, is that I can water down and do things like this. Oh, too much on the brush. So up here, just sort of dot out the excess, because again, snow has texture, so it's like if we have some extras that we dot around, it's not the end of the world. It just is texture in the snow. Which is another way to blend out transitions between the two different ones. Okay, that's not bad. I don't mind that. I'll keep playing and refining it, but again, I haven't done underneath here, so there's not, like, I don't really want to do too much, because luckily that section will all be in shadow anyway, so if I do accidentally activate any of the blue, well, it's just going to be shadow, so it'll just be a shadow tone. But I can't really do too much there, because right now that's still got to wait to be lined and activated. So yeah, it's just a case of going around, finding all the little areas. Let's get some water in there and keep that moist. I'm just doing the little highlights, and then things like this you can also just sort of extend your lines a little bit, like dab out some of that extra color and bring in some more lights. Just sort of, again, that textured effect. And then when it comes to, let's do the yellow. So you can see when you start removing the lines, you get that real painterly effect, and I really think it looks quite neat. No, I think our pure white might be a bit contaminated there. I might need to replace that. Go back to our yellow. Cool. Alright, so over here on the footpath, same thing. But working in that linear line motion that we established. So I'm gonna get some of the piles of light blue that I made. Got plenty of light blue. So covering up any of those lines. And then extra, you can add in some extra lines and marks, and that also just helps break up some of those bigger areas of solid color that we might have put in, and helps it appear, again, more textured. I'm doing that on all the little lines, and then on the bigger, bolder lines we'll use our same technique. Also, you can use your finger to smush out if you need to as well. I find the finger a lot easier to work for application sometimes. Right, that one I'm going to do light blue as well. Well, here we've got plenty of it. It's not too bad. That one up there and that one there are definitely yellows though. So yeah, I did the edge there in yellow thinking distance, maybe the sun would be hitting it, but it's actually kind of distracting me, and my brain's very confused by it. So I'm actually going to also change this, and by using our blue, we can actually change this to a blue highlight. And then I'm going to pull some of that darker blue and just make like a mid-tone blue here. I'll just bring that down and we'll just shade the two together. So if you have any areas like this, like me, where you're like, oh, I just don't feel happy with it, you can also just paint over it. And the gouache kind of dries matte as well, so it doesn't, like, it's not noticeable that it's a different medium. The only noticeable difference is the difference in color, which again I'm working with a differently based blue, and that's my biggest challenge with this. After it's dry, I can work some royal blue pencil over it to try and help. Yeah, it's still unfortunately not the greatest, so it's just one of those annoying things about the set and why I do want to buy some more gouache. So like the edge of this house here, we can do this in blue. Again, we'll just variate our line weight. Do it now, baby blue. Make a watered down version of this. This is also, we're working on a proper palette. It's probably a good idea because it might not dry out so quickly like it is on mine. It is also very warm in here, which isn't helping. I do actually have a medium somewhere that I can add to acrylics to help them last longer before drying out. Could possibly look at adding some of that to gouache, but again, it also reactivates with water, so it's really not an issue. But yeah, that is essentially the process that I will be doing. That's a lot of just going around, adding those highlights, and defining the different areas. It's a very tedious process, I'll admit. This is not the quickest way to do it. It would probably be a lot quicker to do this with Posca pens, but you wouldn't be able to get that variation in tone like I have. Also, like, I find this very relaxing for me. Like, something about this is very calming to just sit here and slowly add on my paint colors, and then, oops, that was the blue, my bad. But yeah, to slowly add the paint colors and then just slowly blend it in and just watch the page start to come to life. I just find it very relaxing and peaceful. Even with town going crazy around me, just sitting here working away at it. So yeah, it's I've probably still got quite a bit more work to do on this page, so let me know what you think. If you'd like to see the remaining process as I work through this page, it would probably just be a speed color or something, just so that I don't have to worry about the town noise, and I can pump my own music and sort of block out the noise and get into the zone. But I hope that's kind of showing you a way to colour snow with a lot of vibrant colours. Yeah, it's a bit hard to see at the non-complete stage, but when you really start to bring it all together, it really, really, really just looks wonderful, and really just, yeah, it's a really fun way to do snow while using a bunch of colours. So yeah, I hope you have enjoyed this video. I've got way too much paint on there. It's also very addicting. I just keep wanting to add in, just wanting to keep adding in. I think I've covered everything that I would. Talked about like adding in extra white highlights. I've talked about the lines, the different tones. Yeah, I think that's everything. But yeah, let me know down below. If I haven't explained anything, please let me know, because I know I feel like I struggle with words a lot. That's why I do the non-descriptive videos sometimes, because I just struggle with words. So yeah, let me know down below if you've got any questions, if there's anything further I need to explain, and I'll keep pottering away on this and hopefully be able to show you a completed page before long, and we can get it looking similar to something like this. But yes, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Bye!